Abacose was a village where time seemed to stand still. Nestled amidst rolling hills and fed by the life-giving river Laconda, it thrived under the shadow of its traditions. The people of Abacose lived by the wisdom of their elders, their lives, shaped by the stories passed down through generations. These tales were not mere entertainment. They were the foundation upon which every action, every belief rested. Elder Wanjala, the village storyteller, often said, "Tradition is the breath of our ancestors. As long as we honor it, Abacose will never falter." But beneath this steadfast adherence lay a tension, a quiet questioning carried in the whispers of the wind. Laconda, the great river of Abacose, was more than water. It was the keeper of the village's secrets. The villagers believed it carried whispers from the ancestors and bore witness to their lives. It was said that those who sought the river's guidance had to approach it with a pure heart, for Laconda's wisdom could not be deceived. One elder proclaimed, "Laconda hears all, sees all, and speaks only to those who listen. Its waters hide the truths we fear to face." Yet the river remained silent, its surface calm, concealing the currents of hidden stories beneath. Among the people of Abacose, none stood out more than Saliha. She was a striking figure, her fiery spirit, an unspoken challenge to the traditions that bound others. Left an orphan at a young age, she had been raised by her grandmother, Nyaboke, the village's herbalist, and a keeper of sacred wisdom. Saliha's independence inspired admiration from some, but stirred unease in others. Her every step, every action, seemed to defy the invisible chains of tradition. "She walks like she carries the sun in her hands," murmured one villager, awe and disdain lacing their voice. But Saliha remained indifferent to both praise and criticism. Her spirit, untamed and unapologetic, burned too brightly to be dimmed by whispers. Nyaboke's guidance was like the roots of an ancient tree, deep, strong, and unyielding. She taught Saliha to find strength in the earth, to seek wisdom in the plants, and to honor the stories of their ancestors. "Child," Nyaboke often said, "the world will try to shape you, but you must hold firm. Remember, even the smallest seed can grow into the mightiest tree if its roots are strong." Through her grandmother's teachings, Saliha learned to balance respect for her heritage with her desire to forge her own path. She absorbed the knowledge of healing, not just for others, but for her own spirit. As Saliha walked through the village, whispers followed her like shadows. Gossip spread quickly, accusing her of impropriety and questioning her intentions. "She has bewitched the men of the village," said one voice. "She is a danger to our traditions," added another. The gossipers' words were carried from mouth to mouth, gaining weight with each telling. Like smoke, they clouded the air, obscuring the truth. Yet, Saliha's stride remained steady, her head held high, her silence louder than their words. Despite the rumors, Saliha's confidence never wavered. She moved through the village with an air of defiance, her posture a silent declaration of her strength. "Why does she not cower?" wondered a villager aloud. "Because she knows who she is," came the quiet reply from an elder. Her unyielding demeanor divided the villagers. Some saw in her a symbol of courage, a beacon of change. Others viewed her as a threat, a force that could unravel the delicate balance of tradition and community. In the shade of the baobab tree, the elders of Abacose gathered to discuss the growing unrest. Chief Okumo spoke first, his voice heavy, with authority. "Saliha's defiance is a challenge to our way of life. What must be done to preserve our traditions?" Elder Wanjala, the village's storyteller, replied thoughtfully, "Traditions are like the river Laconda. They must flow and adapt, or they will stagnate and die." The debate raged on, with voices rising and falling like the rhythm of a drum. Some elders argued for stricter measures, while others called for understanding and change. As the council Deliberated, the true conflict became clear. Saliha was no longer just one woman. She was a symbol of the broader struggle between the past and the future. The elders questioned themselves. Was preserving tradition worth suppressing the spirit of change? Could the village survive if it clung too tightly to its old ways? And, as the whispers of the river Laconda echoed in their minds, the stage was set for a reckoning, a tale of redemption, betrayal, and the unrelenting pursuit of justice. The village of Abacos murmured like the wind in the trees, carrying whispers about Saliha's interactions with the men of the village. To the outside eye, her presence was bold, and her steps left imprints of curiosity and unease. She moves from one to another like the river seeking different shores. One woman muttered near the market, but they did not see the depth of her. Our pain, the hollow spaces in her heart left by the loss of her parents. Beneath her calm and confident demeanor was a yearning for connection. Her laughter at the well, her lingering conversations, were not acts of recklessness, but attempts to fill the void that had shaped her soul. In the quiet of her grandmother's hut, Saliha sat by the fire, her gaze fixed on the flickering flames. Memories came unbidden, flashes of a time when her parents' laughter filled her world. The sound of her father's deep voice telling stories under the stars, her mother's gentle touch as she braided her hair. These images had long faded into dreams she could no longer reach. "Why do you dwell on what is gone, child?" Nyaboke asked softly, breaking the silence. "I try not to, Nya. But the emptiness, it clings to me like a shadow," Saliha replied, her voice trembling. Nyaboke placed a weathered hand on her shoulder. "The river does not mourn the rains it has lost. It flows forward, gathering strength from the journey. So must you." Saliha nodded, but said nothing. She had sought solace in the fleeting companionship of others, but it had only deepened the misunderstandings around her. By the time the sun set behind the hills, the village was alive with talk. At the marketplace, at the riverbanks, even in the council hut, Saliha's name danced on tongues. "Have you heard? They say she lured Chief Okumo's son to the forest last night," one woman whispered to another. "Lies. Saliha is a free spirit, not a temptress," the other replied. The gossip wove itself into the fabric of the village, creating rifts. Some pitied her, whispering of her tragic past and the burden of her orphaned life. Others judged her, calling her a danger to the traditions that had held their community together for generations. Even those who admired her courage began to keep their distance, fearing the elders' wrath. Among the loudest voices against Saliha was her own cousin, Jerry. Hidden behind her soft-spoken words and dutiful demeanor was a heart consumed by jealousy. Why should Saliha receive so much attention when she has brought nothing but shame? Jerry muttered to herself, crushing a handful of herbs in frustration. For years, she had lived in Saliha's shadow, her own virtues overlooked as the village celebrated Saliha's beauty and spirit. The bitterness festered until it turned into a quiet rage. One evening, Jerry whispered to Omondi, a man who once courted Saliha and bore the sting of her rejection. "She thinks she is untouchable, but we can remind the village who she truly is." Omondi's eyes darkened as he listened to Jerry's words. "Saliha humiliated me before the entire village. She deserves to feel the same shame." The two schemed late into the night, their plan coiling like a serpent in the shadows. The upcoming harvest festival would be their stage, a sacred tradition, now poised to become the scene of humiliation. "She will not escape this time," Njeri said, her voice cold with resolve. In the days leading to the festival, Nyaboke sensed a storm brewing. Sitting by the fire, she looked at Saliha, her wise eyes filled with worry. "Child, the winds carry whispers of trouble," she began. Saliha, seated with a mortar and pestle in hand, paused. "I know, Naya. They speak of me every day." Nyaboke, leaned closer, her voice firm. You walk a path few dare to tread, but even the strongest trees can fall if the earth beneath them crumbles. Be wary, Saliha. The village is not as it seems. Saliha placed her hand over Nyaboke's. I will tread carefully, but I cannot abandon my truth. Unbeknownst to the villagers, Saliha's relationships with the men were not what they seemed. Beneath the smiles and fleeting conversations was a purpose as deep and secretive as the Lokonda's currents. Her father's final words before his mysterious death echoed in her mind. Trust only what your heart uncovers. With every interaction, Saliha had been piecing together fragments of the truth about her parents' betrayal. In the quiet moments of the night, Saliha laid out the clues she had gathered, whispers of meetings between elders, veiled threats made to her parents, and the involvement of trusted figures in the village. They thought they could bury the truth, she murmured to herself. But even the deepest roots reached the surface. As the harvest festival approached, the village prepared for celebration, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. In the stillness of her hut, Saliha sat with a resolute expression. They think they have set the stage for my fall, she whispered. But the truth will rise, and their lies will drown in the river's roar. With every passing moment, the tension in the village thickened, and the festival promised to be not just a celebration, but a reckoning that would test the strength of tradition and the power of truth. The sun hung high in the sky, golden and radiant, as the village of Abakoze gathered to celebrate the annual harvest festival. The air hummed with excitement, the rhythmic beat of drums, the sway of dancers, and the fragrant smoke from offerings to the ancestors. It was a time of unity, of rejoicing, of giving thanks for the bounty that the earth had provided. Children ran barefoot through the dust, their laughter ringing in the air, while the elders sat under the great baobab tree, their faces etched with wisdom and age. But beneath the laughter and the music, a darker plan took root. Jerry, with her eyes narrowed in envy, stood close to Amandi, her voice low but sharp. Today we will see her fall. Today, Saliha will learn the price of thinking she is above us. Omandi's heart still burned with the sting of rejection. He had loved Saliha once, but her eyes had turned away from him, choosing another. Now, together with Njeri, he saw this moment as his chance to strike. The festival is the perfect stage. The crowd will believe anything if we give them a story. The elders will have no choice but to act. Jerry's lips curled into a cold smile. Let the harvest be the seed of her downfall. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the festival, Omandi made his move. He stood before the villagers, his voice rising above the noise, calling for attention. The drums fell silent, the dancers froze in their steps, and all eyes turned toward him. Saliha, daughter of no one but herself, has shamed our village, Omandi shouted, his voice filled with accusation. She has broken the sacred bonds of our community, dishonored the elders, and betrayed the trust we placed in her. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Jerry stepped forward, her face painted with mock concern. It is true, Chief Okumo. I have seen it with my own eyes. Saliha has carried herself in ways that are unworthy of our people. She has consorted with men, luring them into her bed as if she were nothing but a shadow of shame. The villagers murmured in disbelief, some shaking their heads, others nodding, caught between confusion and condemnation. Saliha, who had been standing on the edge of the gathering, her heart racing, now felt the weight of 1,000 stares. Before she could gather her thoughts, Chief Okumo's voice boomed through the silence. Saliha, come before us. You must answer for the accusations that have been made against you. Her body stiffened, but she walked toward the chief without hesitation, her chin held high. The murmurs of the crowd were like daggers in her back, but she would not let them break her spirit. She had faced the shadows of her past before. This Moment would not be any different. As Saliha stood before the elders, the weight of tradition pressed heavily upon her. Chief Okumo, his face stern, leaned forward. "Explain yourself, child. What have you to say for your actions?" Her heart thundered in her chest, but her voice was steady as she spoke. "I have never dishonored this village. I have not betrayed anyone. I have walked the paths I chose to uncover the truth of my past, the truth of my parents' death. But I did not expect to be judged for seeking the truth." The elders exchanged glances, their faces unreadable. The pressure of tradition and the demand for conformity were heavy upon them, and they were hesitant to act. They had seen Saliha's beauty, her independence, and her defiance. But what did it mean? Was she truly the one to blame? Or was there more beneath the surface? Saliha's heart, though shaken, began to unravel the web of lies. She stepped forward, facing her accusers, her eyes meeting the chief's gaze with unwavering strength. "I have never sought to hurt this village, but I have sought something far deeper than the whispers of shame you accuse me of. The death of my parents, my mother and father, was not a simple tragedy. It was a betrayal, a dark secret that this village hides." Jerry's face twisted with rage, and Omondi's fists clenched at his sides. But Saliha continued, her voice rising above the din. "My relationships with the men in this village were not acts of dishonor, but steps in uncovering the truth. I sought answers, for my parents were not killed by chance. There are those among you, elders you revere, who conspired to destroy them." The name fell from her lips like a heavy stone, sinking into the hearts of all who heard it. "I have seen the meetings, heard the whispers," she continued. "The men of power in this village betrayed my parents for reasons I am only beginning to understand. And I will uncover every truth, no matter the cost." A stunned silence filled the air. The villagers, who had once adored Saliha, now stood frozen, their beliefs shaken. They had not known the true weight of her actions. What had seemed like scandalous behavior now appeared as the desperate search for justice. As Saliha spoke, the skies above darkened. The wind began to stir, and the first raindrops fell in thick, heavy drops. The earth trembled with the force of the storm that raged across the heavens. The villagers looked up, fear creeping into their hearts as the storm seemed to answer Saliha's words. The storm was a warning. The ancestors were angry, and their fury could not be ignored. Saliha, with her eyes still locked on the elders, did not flinch. "The lies that have festered in this village are now laid bare," she said, her voice steady. "But we must confront them, or the land will never heal." From the edge of the gathering, Nyaboke stepped forward. Her presence was a calming force, her ancient wisdom grounding the chaos of the storm. She raised her hand, and the wind seemed to obey her. The rain slowed, and the thunder softened. "Listen, all of you," Nyaboke's voice echoed, powerful and wise. "The storm does not come without reason. It is the ancestors' warning, a sign that the time for deceit has passed. Saliha speaks the truth, and the truth will cleanse us. We must not fear it, but embrace it." The villagers stood, in stunned silence, their eyes wide with the realization that their deepest fears were manifesting before them. Nyaboke turned to Saliha. "You have shown courage, child, and you have brought forth the truth, though it cuts deep. Now it is time for this village to choose its path. Will we continue to cling to lies, or will we rebuild, honoring the wisdom of the past and the truth of the present?" The rain that had once been fierce now fell softly, a gentle shower that washed over the gathering, cleansing the lies that had tainted their hearts. The villagers, humbled and filled with remorse, turned toward Njeri and Omondi, their faces dark with shame. Jerry's eyes flickered with guilt as the villagers' gaze pierced her like 1,000 thorns. Omondi, too, stood there, exposed and vulnerable, as the truth of their betrayal was laid bare for all to see. One by one, the villagers stepped forward, their words of apology a chorus that filled the air. They embraced Saliha, their guilt washed away by the rain, their hearts burdened no longer. Saliha, though vindicated, did not seek vengeance. She stood, her heart filled with the wisdom of her grandmother. "We are all part of the same village," she said softly. "And it is forgiveness that will heal us, not anger. Let us rebuild, together." And so, the storm broke, and with it, the falsehoods that had torn the village apart. The elders, humbled and transformed, acknowledged their wrongs. The villagers began to rebuild their trust, honoring the truth, and the unity that had once been lost was restored. As the rain fell gently upon the land, Saliha knew that the journey ahead would be long, but with her heart at peace, she was ready to face whatever the future held. The dawn of a new day spread its golden fingers across the village of Abacos, bathing everything in a warm glow. The land, once heavy with the weight of betrayal and darkness, now seemed lighter, as though the earth itself was taking a deep, cleansing breath. The storm had passed, and with it, the tumult of the past. Now Saliha stood on the edge of the village, her face turned towards the horizon, her heart lighter than it had ever been before. In the quiet solitude, she reflected on her journey. One marked by suffering, loss, and betrayal, but also by courage, resilience, and truth. The whispers of the past that had once clung to her like a shadow no longer held power over her. She was no longer the girl who had been scorned by her people, the one who had been accused of dishonor. She was Saliha, the woman who had fought for justice and uncovered the hidden truths that had haunted her family for so long. Her steps were firm now, as if the earth itself had welcomed her back. She had emerged from the ashes of shame like a phoenix, her wings spread wide, ready to embrace the future. The village had changed, and so had she. No longer defined by the mistakes and false accusations of others, Saliha had become a beacon of resilience, a symbol of the power of truth to heal even the deepest wounds. The people of Abacosa now looked to her not with fear or shame, but with respect. She had shown them the way of redemption. Saliha knew that her journey was not yet complete. Though the storm had passed, there was still work to be done. She had been a part of the very fabric of the village, and in her quest for justice, she had unintentionally hurt those she cared for most. The truth had been a double-edged sword, cutting through the lies and bringing light to the darkness, but it had also left scars on relationships that had once been strong. With a deep breath, Saliha made her way to the homes of those she had hurt, the ones who had turned away from her, those who had doubted her intentions. Her heart was heavy, but her resolve was unwavering. She would mend the broken bonds. At the home of Mama Wambui, the village's elder and a woman who had once treated her like a daughter, Saliha knelt before the woman, her voice trembling but sincere. "Mama, I know that my actions have caused you pain. I sought justice, but I did not realize how deeply my journey